What's up, guys? Today I have a fun video for you. We are going to be going through a basic drum mix in 10 minutes.
Bruh.
The idea is I'm going to be working with tools that you would have on any console that you are working from. So for example, if you have an X32, you probably have a compressor, an EQ, a gate. This is going to just be a basic overview. So we're going to knock this out in 10 minutes. And if it takes me a little bit longer than that, I'll edit it down so that those of you with short attention spans will watch the whole video. That's the idea. So if you have not already seen, if you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, I go into way more detail in Mix Series. That is a series that I put together. It's 9 videos long, but one of those videos is dedicated just to drums. Go check that out if you want a little bit more in depth. This, we're going to be working from scratch. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I've got my Pro Tools session pulled up here. So let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. So you can hear what everything sounds like dry with no processing on it. Let me make sure that's turned off just in case. All right, so that's the dry recording. Those drums are not perfectly tuned. There's nothing about this that's really crazy amazing. It's also not crazy bad. So we can definitely work with this. I've talked about this before in Mix Series. I mentioned this because of my mic setup on my kick. I only have one kick mic. The kick is duplicated on here. So I have one channel that is going to have R bass on it. I know that's something that you wouldn't have on a console, but I'm going to do it here because typically if I had minimal processing, I didn't have any wave stuff, then I would do a dual miking on my kick. If I have the channels for it, I always do that. In this scenario, I'm going to be using the microphone to get a good all-around kick sound, and then I'm going to add R bass in just to give it that thump. So what you could do is the setup that I used to use was the RE320 that we have and a DW Moon mic. So that Moon mic is capturing a ton of low end off the head as well. Let's go ahead and get started with the kick itself. So let's listen to it soloed. All right, we're going to start with that on the gate. So to explain what I just did there, all I did was, first off, I forgot to set it to a gate. This is both an expander and a gate. So I went ahead and set that to 100:1 on the ratio. I have the release set relatively long. This plugin tends to air really short. So for some reason, but I have that set a bit longer. I'm able to turn the threshold down a little bit lower because I'm using this key function right here, which is really cool. And it's basically where the gate can be controlled by a certain frequency range of the source or an external source. So if you have like a channel that's dedicated to like a trigger, here I'm just using a low and a high pass filter so that it's ignoring everything above 182 hertz and below 94 hertz. I set my attack a little bit higher, then I have this hold at 30 milliseconds. That's just holding the gate open for that 30 milliseconds. So that transient of the kick is taking about 25 to 30 milliseconds to pass. And I just want it to make sure it's not clamping down on that transient at all. So we've got that gate set. Let's move on to the channel strip. So let's go ahead and dial everything in on EQ. let's go ahead and bring in our kick thump. All right, let's blend that in with our kick. So let's go ahead and move on to snare. Let's move on to the channel strip. All right, now I am going to copy these settings over to my snare bottom. Mainly that gate. Let's turn off our channel strip for now and see what snare bottom sounds like. All right, that's probably a good place to start with the gates. Let's pull our channel strip up. All right, let's hear both of them together. Really quick though, I am going to check my phase on my snare bottom and just make sure that they are playing ball together. I'm probably going to have to flip it, but we're going to check it. This is a really good example of why you check this. So snare bottom is out of phase with snare top. So we are going to flip it, but I want you to hear this. So this is out of phase. And then I'm going to flip the polarity. Out, in. You hear how much low end comes back into the snare whenever they are in phase. So you always want to check that. We're going to go to overheads real quick. Let's pull one of our overheads up. I'm going to go ahead and center out my left one. And we are going to check the polarity of our snare against our overheads. And then if the polarity is wrong, we're going to flip it on the overhead. Okay, it's definitely needing to be flipped. I'm going to check now between my two overheads and see if they are matching up. Yeah, so they definitely needed to be flipped there. I am going to now go back and we can EQ the overhead on the on stage left. So what I was checking for there was just to make sure that the stage right overhead was in phase with the stage left one. It was, which is why I had to flip stage right, because I had just flipped stage left. So let's go ahead and pull this up and let's hear what this sounds like just in isolation. We got some low mid buildup from the drum shield that will happen. So anytime you're using a glass cage or drum shield, you're going to hear a lot of buildup in the mids. So you got to kind of tame that a little bit. Okay, so I feel like that's a pretty good starting point. I'm going to copy this over here to this one, and let's see what these both sound like together. So a lot of what we just did was pretty much entirely dealing with stuff that comes with using a drum cage. Let's take a look at floor tom. All right, so we got our floor tom. Let's check the our polarity of our floor tom against our overheads, and we'll flip the floor tom if we need to. I think maybe if we flip it, it sounds just a little bit better. All right, let's take a look at our hats, because this is a good section for hats. Let's hear what it sounds like blended in with our overheads. All right, let's move on to our rack tom. Yeah, definitely something weird going on in that rack tom recording, but we're going to work around it anyway. So let's go ahead and pull up our gate. All right, let's pull up our EQ, and I'm going to copy my settings over from my floor tom. All right, so we have our drums pretty much processed. Let's go ahead and hear what they sound like all together. All right, not bad. Let's go ahead and process the dry stack here. So I'm going to pull up another 4-to-1 compressor, and we're going to compress this a little bit on the dry. I know that doesn't make sense because it's called the dry, but I do like to compress a little bit, just not a ton. So I am going to slow this down. I still like to follow that same concept of kind of letting it work a little bit slower. Set my release a little bit quicker here. Okay, cool. And we will do the exact same thing. I'm actually going to copy my settings from here over to my crush. Now my crush has my kick and my snare and my toms in it, but it does not have my overheads or my hats. And we will turn this threshold way down. So see where we're at. All right, sounds pretty wild, but I like wild. Let's see what happens when we blend in the crush with the dry. Cool. Now let's get some verb in the mix here. So we need some verb on our snare and our toms. I think that's going to start kind of pulling some things together. We've got our bus set up. Let's check out what D-verb is doing. All right, so I am going to actually swap places with this and throw a channel strip right after this verb, because you would be able to do that on like an X32 or something. You can EQ the verb a little bit, and that's what we're going to do. So I want to take some of that, a little bit of that boxiness out. All right, let's blend some toms in there. All right, now on our kick, I am noticing a little bit of flubbiness. I think by the time all that compression was added, it's kind of sounding weird, so let's take care of that. Yeah, I don't think that sounds bad at all. So let's go back and check out where we started from, and then we will pull all of the processing back in. Cool. So that was probably a little bit longer than 10 minutes by the time everything shook out there, but you kind of get the idea. That's the general gist of how I would approach every drum mix, obviously using different tools, and probably spend a little bit more time working on how the drums sound, probably on the front end, honestly, more than anything on the recording side. Making sure that the performance sounds great, just tightening things up a lot. There's some things that I probably would do, just generally playing with EQs, figuring out how everything sounds together in a whole mix, and making adjustments from there. That's kind of what my approach would be. I hope this was helpful for you, and you guys take care.